All right, welcome Pirate Crew to this second part of the Janus tutorial series. Today we are going to be focusing on gold and steel NMM, and of course we are following the same theme as last time. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be creating these initial tones with much more neutral colors, and then we're really going to be picking out the highlights by adding a bit more saturation, as you can see here on the reference. So the gold palette has a very interesting set of colors. The first one that we see here on the left is good, but it's a bit too neutral for our taste. And so what we're going to be doing is really just using the one that we pulled from the sword as our reference. And so what we're doing is we are just putting down some initial basic tones with English uniform. And then what we are doing is we are going to slowly add in Nightshade Purple and Hull Red in order to gain our contrast. And so, but what we have to do first is lay down a couple of nice thin coats of our English uniform. Essentially what I'm doing is I am letting the white from underneath push through and essentially make it a bit more pastel. So next here we're going to start adding in our shadows. I added in the first little bit of Hull Red and Nightshade Purple here. They work wonderfully together because the Hull Red adds a little bit of reddishness to the color, whereas the Nightshade Purple of course adds a bit of brown, but it also has a bit of purple in it, so it makes the yellows and oranges in the English uniform a little bit more neutral, a little bit more desaturated. And so here again we mixed it down just a little bit more, really creating that separation from those half plates, continually trying to use that push-pull method to create transparency and opacity simultaneously. Again, just working now to create more and more contrast. Again, just using this kind of layering technique in order to do that. You'll notice that in some areas I'm being more careful than others to just make sure that we're getting separation between some elements. And then here specifically, we are lining out these details just so that we have greater contrast in them when we come back with our middle tone and then with our highlights. And so, speaking of middle tones, now we are coming back in with our middle tone of English uniform. I got a little bit on his red shirt there, so I just used my finger to wipe it away quickly. And we're just very carefully, very thinly, probably a light layer consistency, we are adding this back in. And sometimes it may not even show up initially for you, so just put down a couple of coats of it and be patient when you are doing that. Adding just a little bit. The other side, even though it is dark, it still needs a little bit of a medium value to it just to give it volume. So here I added in just a touch of white to the English uniform, and now we are going to start creating some small highlights. So I'm going to do a little bit of a line diagonally there, just in a reference to the direction of the light, and then I'm going to paint down a little bit on that side, on that half plate. And so then here I'm painting the upper portion of these lines that compose the wings. And the reason is that the chest plate is kind of a big spherical shape, and essentially I'm imagining where the highlight would land on that. The half plate is kind of unique because it's a little bit more of a plane mixed in with the spherical shape. So we're giving it kind of different properties and playing with the composition of the light just a touch to make it more interesting. Again, just touching some of those key points. Those two upper points are kind of cylindrically shaped, and so I'm hitting the upper part and then that lower part. A little bit more here. In this instance, I actually added white and Cygnus yellow. Now we're using a touch of that saturation to really bring out these highlights. We just added a little bit more, and we are doing the same. And what we're going to do here is just a couple more rotations of this until we really get it bright enough, and then we're going to use just a few little dots of pure white to really set this off from all of the other elements. And we're not going to use a ton of white, but just a little bit. I'm doing a little bit of edge highlighting here as I go with this color. This is going to be our final highlight here. You can tell it's very bright. It's near white. It's still not quite pure white. And to be honest, we could really end here. These dots of pure white are just very subtle little additions. Just a touch more edge highlighting here. Those upper parts are still going to be bright. It's hard for the camera to capture, but when you rotate the model, you can see those sections quite a lot better. All right, and so here we're going to come in with a pure white. We're just going to do a very thin, faint line down the center of the chest there, and then we are going to add just a couple more dots of this in really prominent places that are sticking out. So the top of the eagle's head there, again the top of that crest, and then these two cylindrical shapes in the feet. And then why not touch a couple of these little buttons here that are going to be steel as well. There you guys go. That is the final little bit of the gold NMM. Next, we're going to hop over into painting the steel NMM of Janus's sword. So I'm excited to show you guys that process as well. See you there in just a sec.